They said my apartment was old, outdated, not worth a penny. They sneered behind my back, but the moment I heard them, my own son and daughter-in-law laughing and mocking the place I've called home for over 30 years, I felt something inside me snap. How could they, the people I raised, the family I trusted, treating me like a joke, like someone invisible? It wasn't just words. That night, I overheard them talking on the phone. Plans to get me to sign papers that would give away the apartment, the house, everything. She's clueless about money, my daughter-in-law whispered with a cruel smile. Once the papers are signed, it's ours. My heart sank. I wanted to scream, to run upstairs and stop them, but I was frozen. Betrayal from the people I loved the most. I had no idea things would get worse. I thought family meant loyalty, respect, love, but they saw me as a burden, someone holding on to an old, worthless home that stood in their way of a better life. It was a cold, sharp stab, their greed cutting deeper than I ever imagined, but I'm not the type to give up quietly. If they thought I was going to roll over, they were wrong, because what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had a secret. A secret that would change everything, something hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. This is my story, how my own children tried to betray me, how I fought back, and how, in the end, I bought the $10 million penthouse right above their heads. I've lived in the same apartment for over 30 years. It's not fancy, old walls, creaky floors, a bit worn around the edges, but it's mine. It's where I built my life, raised my children, and held onto memories that no amount of money can buy. My name is Narrator, and this is the story of how my own family turned against me because of that apartment. My son, Daniel, is a sharp man, always hungry for success. But somewhere along the way, ambition changed him. The boy who used to run to me with scraped knees now barely looks me in the eye. His wife, Sandra, is the kind of woman who measures a person's worth by their bank account, not their heart. From the moment they moved in with us, it was clear they thought my apartment was beneath them, a relic from the past they wanted to erase. Then there's my daughter, Aisha. She's caught between them and me. Sweet and caring, but often silent, afraid to choose sides. I worry she's losing herself to their influence. We have a family lawyer, Mr. Khan. He's been a trusted friend for years, someone I turn to when things get complicated. He's seen my children's rise, their changes, and he's always warned me to keep my eyes open. And there are friends, longtime neighbors and old colleagues, who remind me that family isn't always blood. They've watched me stand strong through tough times and often warn me to be careful with those closest to me. Our family history is complicated. We weren't born into wealth. My husband and I worked hard to give our children a better life. The apartment may be old, but it holds everything we built. Daniel and Sandra have always dreamed bigger. New cars, a flashy house, expensive vacations. To them, my apartment is just an obstacle. Last month, during a family dinner, I felt the chill for the first time. The way Daniel glanced at the apartment's worn furniture, Sandra's thinly veiled comments about upgrading, and Aisha's nervous glances. I tried to brush it off, but inside, I felt the distance growing. That night, I wondered, how did we get here? When did love become conditional? When did my home stop being a place of comfort and become a battlefield? Little did I know, this was only the beginning. After that dinner, things started to change more quickly. What once were polite family visits became sessions of subtle judgment. Sandra never missed a chance to comment on the apartment's outdated look. Always with that fake smile plastered on her face. "Mom, don't you think it's time to modernize? This place feels stuck in the past." She'd say, as if I was some old relic herself. Daniel began avoiding spending time at the apartment unless it was absolutely necessary. When he did come, his eyes darted around, clearly calculating how much money it would take to fix everything. His conversations often turned to investments, property deals, and new developments, not once about family or memories. Aisha tried to keep the peace, but even she joined in on the occasional comment about how things could be better. I could tell she was torn. I loved her for that, but it hurt to see her caught between us. One afternoon, Sandra came over with a folder full of papers. She said it was just some paperwork that needed my signature to help with some family business. I was hesitant, but she assured me it was routine. Daniel echoed her, telling me it was for the betterment of all of us. I didn't understand much of the legal jargon, but I trusted them, or at least I tried to. Friends began whispering warnings. Be careful what you sign. They advised. Make sure you have a lawyer look at it. I nodded politely, but deep down, a small voice told me to be wary. Then there were the gatherings where the topic of money was never far. The family talked about selling the apartment, moving to somewhere more fitting. I stayed quiet, swallowing the lump in my throat. They didn't see it as my home anymore, just a barrier to their dreams. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I heard Daniel and Sandra arguing quietly in the kitchen. She's going to sign the papers if we keep pushing, Sandra said with a smirk. After that, it's all ours. That's when the cold dread set in. What was really going on behind my back? And more importantly, what had I agreed to without fully knowing it? I wanted to believe they cared, that family meant more than money, but the truth was slipping through my fingers like sand. The next morning, a plain envelope arrived in the mail. Inside were stacks of papers, contracts, deeds, and legal forms. I stared at them, heart-pounding, as the reality hit me. These were the documents Daniel and Sandra had been talking about. They wanted me to sign everything away. I tried reading the fine print, but the words blurred together. Legal jargon made it nearly impossible to understand what I was agreeing to. When I called Mr. Khan, our family lawyer, he was surprised to hear about these documents. You should never sign anything without consulting me first, he said firmly. But Daniel and Sandra had already been pressuring me, telling me it was urgent and routine. That day, I felt trapped. Their smiles hid cold intentions. They acted like I was being difficult, stubborn for questioning them. But I had every right to be afraid. Sandra stopped inviting me to family dinners. Daniel grew distant, no longer answering my calls promptly. Aisha tried to be my bridge, but even she seemed cautious, like she was afraid of what would happen if she sided with me. One afternoon, I found a folder on my kitchen table, a set of papers that hadn't been there before. I opened it to find a document with my name on it and a signature I didn't remember giving. My hands shook. Had I been tricked? Panic bubbled up inside me. I reached out to Mr. Khan again, pleading for help. He promised to review everything and find out what was going on. I was determined not to lose my home. But I realized I couldn't do it alone. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I discovered something that would turn everything upside down. That mysterious letter arrived on a rainy afternoon. I remember holding it in my hands, the paper slightly damp from the weather, my heart pounding like never before. It was from a law firm I hadn't heard of before, addressed to me personally. My hands trembled as I carefully unfolded the letter. Inside, the lawyer explained something I could hardly believe. There was a secret will, one that my late husband had hidden from everyone. This will clearly stated that I was the sole owner of not just the old apartment I lived in, but also a luxurious penthouse located directly above it. A penthouse worth more than $10 million. The shock hit me like a tidal wave. How could my own children not know about this, or worse, had they known and kept it from me? The letter went on to say that the penthouse had remained in my name, untouched and unknown to the outside world, while my children schemed to take over what they thought was just a modest home. Suddenly, everything made sense. The mocking words, the pressure to sign papers, the cold glances. They wanted the apartment, sure, but they had no idea I was sitting on a fortune right above their heads. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and a strange sense of power. This was my moment. I immediately called Mr. Khan. When I told him about the letter, he was stunned. This changes everything, he said. You've been handed a gift and a weapon, but you have to be careful. Your children won't take this lying down. That evening, I watched my son and daughter-in-law at dinner. The same cold smiles, the same fake concern. But now I held the truth. I decided it was time to confront them, not with anger, but with certainty. They had underestimated me, but would they listen, or would the family I once trusted crumble completely? The next morning, I met with Mr. Khan in his small, cluttered office downtown. He laid the letter and the other documents out on his desk and looked at me with a serious expression. This isn't just about property, he said. This is about trust and potentially fraud. He explained that the documents Daniel and Sandra had been pushing me to sign were designed to transfer ownership of the apartment and maybe other assets without my full knowledge. They're trying to corner you into giving up your rights, he warned. If you sign anything without fully understanding it, you could lose everything. Hearing this made my blood run cold. All those hours I spent hoping they had my best interests at heart suddenly felt like a cruel joke. Mr. Khan promised to review every paper carefully and help me take the right steps. He said I needed to act fast before the family's plans moved any further, but there was another problem: confrontation. Daniel and Sandra were clever. They could deny everything, manipulate the truth, or even claim I was confused or forgetful. You have to be prepared for that. Mr. Khan warned, family betrayals like this get ugly. I left his office with a new resolve. No longer would I blindly trust. No longer would I let my own children walk over me. That evening, I tried to talk to Daniel. I told him I had spoken to the lawyer, and I wasn't comfortable signing anything. His face darkened. Mom, you don't understand. This is for your own good. Sandra joined in, her voice dripping with false concern. You're making things harder than they need to be. I stood my ground. I'm not signing until I know the full truth. The tension was thick, the silence after my words heavier than anything before. I realized this was no longer about property. This was a battle for my dignity, my place in the family. The unexpected visitor showed up late one evening, a close family friend, someone I trusted, but their message shook me to my core. They're planning to pressure you again tomorrow, they warned quietly. They don't want you to talk to the lawyer or ask questions. I knew then the battle was escalating. The next day, Daniel and Sandra came over, papers in hand, their smiles thin and forced. Mom, Daniel said, it's time to put all this behind us. Sign the papers, and we can move forward as a family. I looked at Sandra, who avoided my gaze, and felt a surge of anger I tried to bury. No, I said firmly. I won't sign anything without full understanding. You don't get to push me around. Sandra's voice sharpened. You're being stubborn. This apartment is old and useless. Why are you holding onto it like it's a treasure? Daniel stepped closer. This isn't just about the apartment. It's about the family's future. I shook my head, tears burning. You don't respect me. You don't see me as your mother, just a barrier. Aisha tried to calm things down. Let's not fight like this, but it was too late. The room was charged with anger, betrayal, and disappointment. I realized this wasn't a simple family disagreement. It was a war over trust and respect. That night, alone in my apartment, I felt broken but also determined. I wouldn't let them win. Little did they know, I held a secret weapon. The letter from the lawyer revealing the penthouse, and I was ready to use it. Just days after the tense confrontation, another letter arrived. This one was from a different law firm, more official, looking with a heavy envelope that felt important in my hands. I barely slept the night before, knowing this could be the turning point. Inside, the letter confirmed everything Mr. Khan had suspected and more. It explained in clear terms the existence of a secret will, written years ago by my late husband. The will named me not just as the owner of our apartment, but also as the rightful owner of a hidden penthouse directly above us, a penthouse worth millions. The lawyer's letter detailed how my husband had kept this property under my name to protect it from anyone who might try to take it away unfairly, especially in case of family disputes. It was an inheritance meant to secure my future, away from greed and lies. Reading that letter, I felt a mix of disbelief and vindication. The same children who mocked my old apartment had no idea what lay just floors above them. For years, they had been blinded by their ambition, unaware that their mother was quietly sitting on a fortune. But the letter also came with a warning. If I wanted to claim this inheritance, I needed to act quickly and carefully. There were legal steps to take, and I couldn't afford any mistakes. For the first time in months, hope flickered inside me. I wasn't powerless anymore. I had the truth, and with it, a chance to fight back and reclaim what was rightfully mine. I called Mr. Khan immediately. This is the breakthrough we needed, he said, his voice steady but cautious. Now we prepared to take the next step, but I knew this wouldn't be easy. Daniel and Sandra wouldn't back down without a fight. I steeled myself, ready for the battle ahead. The moment I held that letter, the hidden truth became crystal clear. For years, I had been living beneath a treasure my own family didn't know existed, or worse, pretended not to see. The penthouse was real, registered in my name, untouched and waiting. Mr. Khan helped me obtain the official property deeds. I remember the day we stood together, looking at the documents that proved ownership of a sprawling, luxurious penthouse with panoramic views of the city. It was everything my children dreamed of: marble floors, grand rooms, terraces overlooking the skyline, worth more than $10 million. I felt a surge of emotions, shock, relief, and a quiet satisfaction. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about being seen and valued as the mother and woman I had always been. But there was also a deeper question gnawing at me. How could Daniel and Sandra have been so blind? Or had they been deliberately kept in the dark? I wondered if my daughter Aisha knew more than she let on. That afternoon, I visited the building manager and secretly inspected the penthouse for the first time. Walking through those grand rooms, I imagined what life could have been like, living with dignity, comfort, and freedom. Yet, the most powerful feeling was this: finally, I had control. I was no longer trapped beneath their lies and greed. That evening, I looked at my phone and hesitated before sending a message to Daniel and Sandra, letting them know I was aware of the penthouse. I wasn't threatening, just confident. Their silence afterward was deafening. They had underestimated me for too long. The next family gathering felt different. I walked into the room holding my head high, no longer the quiet, ignored mother. Daniel and Sandra sat stiffly, their eyes darting nervously toward me. I could tell they were trying to act normal, but I had already won the first battle. I know about the penthouse, I said calmly, watching their reactions. Sandra's smile vanished instantly. Daniel's jaw tightened. How did you find out? Daniel stammered, clearly caught off guard. I smiled softly, feeling a newfound strength. That letter from the lawyer was very clear. I'm the rightful owner. All along, you thought you could push me aside, but I held the keys to your dreams. Sandra's voice trembled with anger. You're bluffing. That property isn't yours. I have the deeds. I replied, pulling out the papers Mr. Khan had prepared, and I'm ready to take legal steps to protect what's mine. The room grew tense. Aisha looked down, torn between us, but I could see the relief in her eyes. Daniel finally spoke, voice low and bitter. You could have told us. We could have worked this out. I shook my head. You didn't want to work out anything. You wanted me to give up everything without a fight. The confrontation was painful but necessary. I laid out everything: the secret will, the pressure to sign away my rights, the lies and betrayal. By the end, the truth was out. The family I thought I knew was shattered, but I had reclaimed my place, not just as a mother, but as a woman who wouldn't be ignored. From that day forward, things changed. The children's greed was exposed, and I finally had the respect I deserved. After the showdown, I knew the fight wasn't finished, but I finally had the upper hand. With Mr. Khan's help, I began the legal process to officially register the penthouse under my name and protect all my rights. It wasn't easy. Daniel and Sandra tried to slow things down with threats and excuses, but the truth was on my side. The lawyer filed the paperwork, and soon the courts acknowledged my rightful ownership. I felt a deep sense of relief as the weight of their greed started to lift from my shoulders. I also took steps to revoke any unauthorized signatures or documents they had pushed me to sign. No longer would they manipulate me or try to take what was mine by deceit. But beyond the legal battles, I wanted to send a message to my children, to everyone who had doubted me, that I was still here, strong and unbroken. I invited close friends and neighbors to the penthouse for a small gathering. They were stunned when I revealed the secret apartment and how I reclaimed control. The whispers spread fast, and soon the truth was out in the open. Daniel and Sandra faced the consequences of their actions. Friends distanced themselves, and their reputation took a hit. It was painful to see, but they brought it upon themselves, and through it all, Aisha stayed by my side, finally standing up for what was right. Just as I was beginning to breathe easier, the family fallout started to ripple through my life. News about the penthouse and the battle over the apartment spread faster than I imagined. Friends and neighbors took sides, whispers turning into conversations, and I felt eyes on me everywhere I went. Daniel and Sandra's world shifted dramatically. Friends who once praised their success now looked at them with suspicion. Invitations stopped coming. Their smiles faded under the weight of their exposed greed. I heard from a few neighbors that Sandra had been overheard blaming me bitterly, saying, "She ruined everything for us." But the truth was, their actions had already done that long before. Aisha, who had been caught in the middle for so long, finally found her voice. One afternoon she came to me, tears in her eyes, confessing how she regretted not standing up sooner. "Mom, I was scared," she admitted, "but I want to help make things right." Her words warmed my heart. In the middle of all this chaos, our bond was healing. Daniel, however, did not come to me with apologies. Instead, he showed up one evening, desperate, trying to salvage what was left of our relationship. But after everything, forgiveness wasn't easy. I had to choose what was best for me, to protect myself and the family I still cared for, but also to set boundaries so the cycle wouldn't repeat. The betrayal had changed us all. Some bridges burned, others mended slowly. After the storm of betrayal and fallout, I knew I had to rebuild, not just my life, but my sense of peace. It was clear that some relationships wouldn't return to what they once were, and that was okay. I needed to set boundaries, firm lines that would protect me from being hurt again. I told Daniel and Sandra that our relationship could only continue if there was honesty and respect, no more manipulation or lies. For now, they needed to prove they could be trusted. Aisha became my strongest support. We spent more time together, repairing what had been frayed for too long. It was a slow process, but with each conversation, our bond grew stronger. I also embraced my new home, the Penthouse, not as a symbol of wealth, but as a sanctuary where I could live on my own terms. Every morning, I'd look out over the city skyline and remind myself that respect matters more than money. Friends and neighbors who once doubted me now saw my strength, and I made new connections. People who valued me for who I am, not what I own. Most importantly, I learned to trust my own instincts. No longer would I be blind to betrayal disguised as love. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. The weeks after setting new boundaries were both difficult and necessary. Healing from betrayal isn't a quick fix. It's a slow, painful journey that forces you to face wounds you thought were long buried. Some days I woke up feeling lighter, hopeful for the future. Other days, the memories of broken trust haunted me like shadows in the night. But each morning, I reminded myself that I was stronger than their greed, stronger than the lies. Aisha became my closest ally. We talked for hours, sharing fears, regrets, and dreams. Her honesty helped me heal in ways I didn't expect. It was clear she was trying to find her own path, separate from the bitterness that had consumed Daniel and Sandra. I also started focusing on myself. Simple things like walks around the city, catching up with old friends, and rediscovering hobbies I had neglected for years. The Penthouse became a symbol of new beginnings, a place where I could reclaim joy. Yet, even as I found peace, a part of me remained cautious. Trust is hard to rebuild once shattered. Then, one afternoon, I received a message that surprised me, a text from Daniel. Daniel's message caught me off guard. It wasn't an apology, at least not exactly, but it was a start. He wrote, "Mom, I don't expect forgiveness right away, but I want to try to understand and make things right." For a moment, I didn't know how to respond. Years of hurt, broken promises, and betrayal didn't disappear with a few words on a screen. But part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was sincere. I replied cautiously, suggesting we meet to talk, but only if he was willing to be honest and respectful. When we met, the conversation was awkward but real. Daniel admitted his mistakes and the greed that had blinded him. He spoke about pressure from Sandra and how, somewhere along the way, he lost sight of what truly mattered, family. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was a beginning. Meanwhile, I continued to build my new life. The penthouse became more than just a symbol. It became home. I filled it with warmth, laughter, and hope. Aisha and I grew closer every day, learning to support each other through the scars left behind. I also started volunteering at a local community center, helping other parents who faced betrayal and hardship. Sharing my story gave me strength, and I realized that healing often comes from helping others heal too. Slowly but surely, I was rebuilding, not just a life, but a family shaped by truth and respect. The final confrontation came quietly, without drama or shouting. It was a conversation between me and Daniel, one last moment to set things right, or walk away. He admitted his faults fully, not just the greed, but the selfishness and disrespect. I told him forgiveness was possible, but trust would have to be earned day by day. As we talked, I realized something important. This story wasn't just about money or property. It was about something deeper: respect, love, and the ties that bind us even when they're tested. I learned that sometimes people reveal their true colors in the darkest moments, but those moments also give us the chance to rise, to reclaim our dignity. Owning the penthouse was never about the money. It was about reclaiming my place in a family that tried to push me aside. So here's what I want you to remember from my story. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too. Because no fortune can replace the honor and love that should hold a family together.